Now, it's pretty clear. They're destroying the US dollar. There's a few major players involved in this. One of them is the current administration in America. One of them that's involved in this is Vladimir Putin. And then you've got a couple wild cards. You've got China, you've got Saudi Arabia. What does all of this mean? All of this energy crisis, this war with Ukraine and Russia, how could this affect the global trade of energy and oil, the petrodollar system, and how can it affect record levels of inflation that we're seeing that seem to be just getting started with the way things are unfolding? I'm going to break all of this down for you so that you can make sense of all of the financial and global news that's happening today, and so you can be prepared about what might be coming next. Let's dive right into this video. And I'm going to move right over to my presentation on my computer to break down some of these trending news events and how they affect your money. So let's start this off with our good friend Vladimir Putin, who is now saying, after sanctions were put against their US dollar reserves, Putin says that he is ordering Europe to pay rubles for Russian gas and all that needed Russian energy. So this is Putin versus the US dollar. Now, the G7 has rejected Putin's demands that Russian energy be paid for with rubles. So this energy war, which United States and many of the top G7 countries are reliant on Russian energy, is turning into a currency war because Russia was sanctioned with their US dollar reserves. So why would they continue to trade their energy for US dollars? They want it in rubles. So the energy war is becoming a currency war. Russian lawmaker has said that the G7 refusal to pay in Russian rubles for gas will definitely lead to a halt in supplies. Again, energy war is a currency war. We've had many people saying that this will be a total collapse if Russian gas supply is cut off, especially for Germany, who is so reliant on that Russian energy. And we've had some breaking news yesterday as Gazprom has stopped delivery of Russian gas to Germany through their pipeline. Is this a sign that more of it is coming? Now, George Gammon had an interesting take on this. He said, US dollar's role as global reserve currency has already taken a hit. So he said, is Putin's target Ukraine or the dollar? And he quotes here that the US dollar's role as global reserve currency has already taken a hit and that a move to pricing Russia's biggest exports in rubles would be in their interest. So this is a war on the dollar that is starting to shape itself out. If Russia can command their energy in rubles, you're going to have a lot of a decrease in demand for dollars. Now, if Saudi Arabia and other major oil countries quit doing it as well, you're going to see a huge shift. And we've started to see that as Saudi Arabia has declined calls with Biden amid fears of oil price spike. Biden's trying to get on the phone with them, telling them to pump more oil. Why would they want to pump more oil? The price is going up. And now this US dollar that they're supposed to trade in has been printed into oblivion, and they're seeing other countries starting to break away from this petrodollar system. So what is this all showing us? That the petrodollar is dying. Now, in response to all of this, and this is where it starts to become a massive all-out war on the US dollar, we see energy prices, which were already rising before the Ukraine debacle, we're seeing them rise even more. So we've had many calls for energy and gas stimulus checks to be sent. $400 is proposed for Gavin Newsom in California. So energy sources will equal more money printing. We've had Canada say that they're going to give $500 out to help people with all of this energy and asset and food inflation. So what's happening here is that they are going to be forced politically as life gets less tolerable for most
Americans and most people of G7 countries if these energy crises continue and that there's more chicken playing between Russia demanding rubles and G7 saying they will not oblige to it. What we're likely going to see is even more money printing on top of this, which is only going to cause devaluation of currency further and faster, especially considering if Saudi Arabia and other countries quit trading their energy in dollars, you're going to have a decrease in global demand of it. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting, is that Biden says that because of all this, we need to double down on our commitment to clean energy. We had Zelensky from Ukraine saying the same thing. So he said 150 trillion in QE over the next 30 years. Just think about how terrible this is going to be for inflation and how terrible this is going to be for the overall currency and savings. So this is more of the same theme. Energy crisis equals insane money printing. Now, nearly $2 trillion was spent from 2011 to 2018 on wind and solar energy across the globe. And in the end, they covered 3% of world's energy needs. So that's why Biden threw out such a big number, 150 trillion, because they're going to have to print incredible amounts of money if they want a reliable level of the world's energy needs to come from this quote unquote clean energy as a way to deviate from the really negotiating terms that Russia is saying. And if the US doesn't comply and they refuse to buy in rubles along with other G7 countries. And in response to this, Biden has said he's going to release about 1 million barrels of oil a day from the strategic reserves. As a country, we use about 27 million, so it's an infinitesimal level. What we're going to see is our reserves continue to dwindle further and further on top of more and more stimulus, creating a perfect storm as this continues to go and go. Now, we've had the president of BlackRock even say that an entitled generation, which is a funny word because their generation is the generation that's been entitled. They're the ones that have been entitled to the money printing. They printed all the money. They padded all their assets. They bumped up all their asset prices. But they're saying that we need to embrace and get ready for a shock of shortages and higher inflation. Experts warn Americans will pay an extra $433 a month for basic goods this year. So shortage warnings, which, of course, as we're having more shortages, you can see the theme being planted that, well, if there's shortages, we'll just give you guys more stimulus money, which is only going to set us further on this incredible path of currency devaluation. And here's a nice little tweet by Carol Roth, who I've had on the show. And she said, first they said there'll be no inflation. Then they said inflation's transitory. Then they said inflation's good for you. Then they said inflation only hurts the rich. Then they said it's the consumer's fault. Then they said it's the greedy business's fault. Then they said it's Putin's fault. Then they said maybe try lentils. Maybe you should actually pass on getting your dog chemotherapy. And we're seeing this narrative fall apart. I call this the narrative shifts, or as Klaus Schwab calls them, the great narratives. Now, you can see here on the Fed's graph, they are admitting openly in their data that the CPI is skyrocketing. You can really see it take off at the start of 2021 and go straight vertical as all of this money printing is making its way into the system. So 80% of all US dollars were printed in the past 24 months or so. And so the big question is, do you really think inflation is 7.9%? And I think to answer that question, all you really need to do is look at the fact that the Congress made their pay increase at 20%. So I think that's what we're looking at. And that begs the question of what comes next. And you're likely going to see Putin, China, and these countries start demanding payments for their currency in gold. And this leads to our sponsor, and a word from our sponsor, Blue Lagoon Resources, a soon-to-be producing gold mining stock.
So our sponsor today is one of those companies that is set to make big profits from everything that's happening with the war on energy and the war on currency, and that's Blue Lagoon Resources. They're a pre-production gold mining stock, and the shares of BLAGF, which is their ticker symbol, are up 70% since February, and they are up over 40% since the start of 2022. I've had the CEO, Rana Vig, on the show before. And right now, he's personally bought over 100,000 shares just in the past 3 weeks as the company gets closer to production and a potential revaluation. So Rana has been able to attract Crescat Capital. We've had Tavi here on the show as well. And they're ultimately one of the best performing institutional investors in the mining world. Specifically, Quentin Hayden is a living legend in the gold industry, and he's Crescat's strategic advisor, and he's the one that's really leading the charge behind their investing in Blue Lagoon Resources. And Hayden has said recently an exact quote, which essentially saying this is one of the biggest discoveries of the past decades, and explaining why he has positioned himself with Crescat to be one of the large shareholders. And as I stated, he is the strategic technical advisor. And here's a quote from him. He said, "Looking at dozens upon dozens of companies every single month, we believe we identified the opportunity in Blue Lagoon early on and are pleased to add to our investment in the company and are excited about the recent drilling results released by Blue Lagoon. And we continue to believe in the significant potential of the Dome Mountain project. With this new funding, Blue Lagoon is well situated to execute on its aggressive 20,000 meter drill program, one that could see Dome Mountain well on its way to becoming a world-class deposit." So Crescat owns about 18% of the total funding. And if you missed one of our interviews with Rana, here's just a little recap. So Blue Lagoon's production ready. They're cleared to go. They should be the only gold company in the world that's going to commence production in the second half of 2022, which is exciting in and of itself. And this is one of those times in the pre-production sweet spot when you've got this currency war, this energy war, Russia saying they're going to demand their money in gold, that a pre-production and moving into production company can really benefit from the sweet spot. They'll be cash flowing, and their cost production of gold is going to be less than $1,000 per ounce. So that's Blue Lagoon Resources. Their symbol is BLAGF. And again, they're up about 70% since the beginning of February and over 40% in 2022 alone, where most gold companies have struggled. Although we're starting to see the shift as this currency war continues to wage on. Now, I'm not trying to scare you, right? But when you read all that data of all these current affairs going on, you see Russia halting gas exports, you see them demanding their payments in rubles, G7 countries saying we're not going to do it. You can see the shakeup. Saudi Arabia saying they're not going to answer Biden's phone calls. You can see the shift out of a petrodollar system and a shift to either another type of fiat currency, or maybe it's going to be a bit of a hybrid and countries are going to start demanding their payments in gold. But all we know for sure is as this continues to wage on further, you're going to see the United States and other major G7 countries try to supplement people's fears of rising energy crisis, shortages, by printing even more money. Now, if we have a decrease in global demand for dollars because energy is being traded outside of the petrodollar system, and on top of that, massive inflation and more money printing to give to middle-class voters to try to supplement their decreased cost in their purchasing power, you're going to see inflation pick up to levels we haven't seen before, and we might be heading to the very end of this fiat currency cycle, hence why gold, silver, commodities, and mining stocks play such an important role. So let me know what you think about today's video in the comments right there down below. Where does this all go? Is this going to be the blow up of the petrodollar system? Is there going to be some type of an agreement that these countries make that stop this from getting too bad? You can let me know in the comments right there down below. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button on it to send it out into the YouTube universe. I'll link the Blue Lagoon website right there down below, and I'll see you on the next video.